Hi, this is Ren, and this is All Walks of Film. Today we have our guest
Shane Langness.
Today we're going to be talking about superhero films. I honestly think they're making way too many of them, and if you've checked out the release calendar for the Marvel movies, I mean, like, oh my god. I mean, it's like nerd heaven, but at the same time, I'm really scared that it's going to overstay its welcome.
Well, the thing is there's like just you could say the same thing about movies in general, you know? Like any movie genre could have overstayed its welcome, but now it's an established genre.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there were movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, which proved that you don't have to be a recognizable comic to make a successful movie. Because
Or you can have really good action comedies that have those same Parks and Recreation type of jokes that Chris Pratt is known for.
Yeah. Yeah, and action comedies have been around for a long time.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what it is mostly. It's not really... It's more like an action comedy set in space than anything. Like, to me.
Yeah, and so long as they keep on making comic book movies of, like, different genres and stuff like that, I think it'll be alright.
Yeah. Because, like, the more stuff you make, the more doors it opens for more obscure and smaller, less well-known worlds, you know, for us to explore via movie or TV series.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I honestly think that audiences are going to get tired of it, and Marvel's going to make money for a certain period of time, and then all of a sudden, like, the films are not going to do well. Have you seen the trailer to the new Ant-Man movie?
I saw a very small trailer, a very tiny trailer.
Okay, well, I'd recommend you checking it out. You can do that now, or later.
But I don't really. The thing is, I agree with you that the movie part, how excuse me, how audiences are gonna be bored of it as a movie. I agree with that. You're not looking for you're gonna cut out so much of the lore and compress it so much into a movie. That movie probably isn't the best place for superhero and comic book films to go to. I think the best space for those things is probably like the premium quality cable channels or internet TV providers like Netflix or Amazon that can provide like a 6-episode series for a comic story instead of a 90-minute movie where they cram everything in.
Right, and you know it allows for like a more niche audience because like of you know binge watching TV. I mean, you got House of Cards, you got Orange is the New Black, and then you know the new Daredevil show is actually coming out on Netflix as well.
Really, I didn't know they were making one.
Yeah, they're making a Daredevil show, and from what I heard, it's going to be like an R-rated style movie. So
cool.
So I'm kind of happy that we're finally getting like a more gritty superhero movie. And some people argue that like, oh well, you know, all the superhero movies are too gritty and stuff like that. I think there needs to be a blend. Because if you just try to make every single superhero movie that comes out after Guardians of the Galaxy, people are going to get tired of that too.
Well, the people are going to get tired of the same, but we also want more of the same. And, you know, we can't really say what we will like until it actually comes out when we watch it. Just like how, you know, when a game's coming out and it's like got a pre-order, you know, and everybody gets on the hype bandwagon. You can't really know if it's a good game until at least a month after it's been out. And you can't even judge it by that, because every single game has pros and cons. The same was said for a movie or its genre or the derivatives thereof. You know, each thing adds something more to it and progresses the genre, as well as has some things that people will detract or take away from it. That doesn't mean that it's bad or stale or anything. It means that it's just not for you. That's my point of view on it, at least.
But part of me that is a little disappointed is like now Chris Nolan is kind of out of the game, so we're not going to have that kind of highbrow superhero movie.
Well, that's not true. You don't know who could come along and like make something like Supergod into a movie. You know, we have so many gritty comics that are already there as source material that can be grabbed by any director coming around.
I'm sorry, Supergod. I've never heard of Supergod.
Supergod. So I think it was Warren Ellis did a series that explored um, the levels of what it means to be a superhero. Like, how good can a superhero be without disrupting the world? In one of them. Another one is, what is a world like when you have a good superhero and everyone wants to take a part of them? And in Supergod, it's sort of like, what if superheroes were more like weapons of mass destruction? Each country had their own superhero that they had like funded, and they had like all those pitfalls and stuff. And it takes place over this British scientist who recounts all this superhero weapons arm race that had been going on for the last 60 years in the world, while the world is kind of falling down around him, and it all leads up to the reason why the world was ending.
Yeah.
It's only a six book comic, but it's the point of it is it deconstructs and rebuilds the superhero, what it means to be a superhero in the superhero genre, with that same kind of fantasy, but it also brings in that gritty realism as well. And the blend that it creates is something that I would love to see a movie of. And since they have all this stuff leading down this path, we're going to see the same kind of evolution of movie comic genre that we did in real comics. You know, we're going to see that branching out and that changing and that openness to explore that we've also seen in movies and games, in all of fiction, seriously.
Yeah, and like one thing that I will say about the movie adaptations of comic books is, for the most part, the movie adaptations actually have better writing than the comics, because you know, you can't really laud comic books over their writing unless you're reading like Alan Moore or, you know, some of Grant Morrison's work, some of Warren Ellis's work. But like, for the most part, you know, if you read a comic book, the writing is just terrible. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, I have a love-hate relationship with the show Gotham. Because, you know, I know a lot of people don't like the show because they're like, oh, it's too cheesy and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, even when the writing's bad, it still sometimes is better than half the Batman comics, which is sad but true. You
gotta understand that half the Batman comics were written in like the 50s, 60s, and 40s. No, you know, it wasn't until like the 90s that we actually got any good comic writing.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the good comic writing was like from, you know, people that were writers to begin with, and they just got artists to join them. Like, I would say the best written comics are not written by the artist. I mean, are not drawn and written. I mean, there are a couple like that. Like, I'm currently reading Art Spiegelman's Mouse right now.
Yes, that's a really good one.
Yeah. Well, my co-host Casey recommended me read that because we're doing a podcast talking about Holocaust films. We started out with Schindler's List. I'm gonna watch The Boy with the Striped Pajamas. I think today or tomorrow or something. And then we might throw in Sophie's Choice, and then we're gonna finish it up with the best film to finish that up with. Inglourious Bastards. You know.
Yeah, that's a good Holocaust one.
Well, that gives you the catharsis you need once you.
I think a really good Holocaust film would probably be and I'm using the word film loosely to define any kind of visual media. So a TV series that is well produced can be a film. Like, I consider Game of Thrones a film, and also The Wire is also a film to me. Yeah. A film would be Band of Brothers. That's also a very good Holocaust one, because that's the one where they actually find the camp, and you know, you can see the people's reaction to what they've found. They found the first Holocaust camp, and what they do to the people who are in the town. You know, the people who probably didn't even know that they had a Holocaust camp in their town. It's really not. I don't want to say great, because that implies good, but it's a well-made sequence. Yeah. It's very gripping, enthralling, I guess. A compelling part of the series.
I'm actually embarrassed because I actually haven't watched Band of Brothers yet. So.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Are there any comic books that you would actually be interested in actually being made into a film other than what you had just mentioned, Supergods?
Well, let's see. Besides that one, we already have Walking Dead as a TV series.
I honestly would like to see more like comic book movies based on comic properties that are not film. Like Mouse
maybe
Bone.
Film. Bone. Have you ever heard of Bone?
Yeah, Casey also wants me to read that. So
Bone is a really good one that could be made into a movie. Sinfest is a really good comic series. I think maybe Problem Sleuth, and it's the one that comes after Problem Sleuth, Homestuck, is also a good comic that could be made into a series or movie.
You're naming tons of comics I've never even heard of, so I'm gonna have to.
These are web comics, so I mean, there's a lot of different kind of comics. If you didn't really specify what kind of comics you wanted.
Oh no, I mean, honestly, I think like any avenue is like open because, yeah, like you said, comics are already storyboards, so like,
yeah.
I'm actually surprised that more films aren't based on comic properties.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword a little bit because. So we have stuff like Watchmen and Alan Moore's other works. Alan Moore really, really bases his stuff. He really does consider it a storyboard for a movie that won't be produced because it's too big or his view is different. But then when we got at something that was actually kind of shot for shot his view, the Watchmen movie, it was sort of not very, movie-ish. It was very different. The pacing wasn't right to go with the comic, and it was really an odd feeling with that kind of movie. And that alone was enough to show that you kind of really need to know what you're doing on both sides of the fence. You can't just say, like, I'm going to make it straight into a movie or I'm going to make a movie straight out of the comic. You kind of want to have enough love and dedication to extend what you saw in the original source material rather than, and also extend and interpret it in your own way. Sort of like how Scott Pilgrim vs. the World did it. And I know it's not very strict to say, but also what Rockstar did with the Warriors movie. They kind of did that same thing with the game, is what I'm talking about.
So, I know that you mentioned The Walking Dead earlier. What have you played the Telltale games?
Yes, the first season, not the second season yet.
In comparison with the other adaptation being the TV show, which one do you think is a stronger property?
Well, the game is really a stronger one because you make your choices. You go at your own pace. You're not trying to, watch what someone else's story is. You're making your own story in that setting. So it's sort of weird to kind of compare them all because we also have the tablet games and we have the comic book itself and we have the other supplementary materials as well. So it's all about how much control you want over the story. If you want to have no control and just sit back and watch it, then the TV show is great for you. But if you want to have as much control as possible, then I'd say the game is probably the best.
Yeah.
So it depends on the audience you're trying to go after.
Honestly, I like the relationship between Lee and Clementine versus like any relationship in the TV show, so that's what really sells it to me. And even if you were just going to transfer that onto film, I think it would make a better story. I
know both of us have finished the game, and hopefully anybody who listens to this will have finished the game as well.
So, spoiler alert.
Yeah, but well, it's not really a spoiler because the game's been out for long enough that anybody who wanted to play it and would be listening to this to learn more about it would probably have already played it. But anyway, the whole thing about the comic and the story of Walking Dead is that you have a main character, which in the games probably is going to be Clementine, and she can go for longer, probably, unless she dies. But you have a one single person who has a bunch of shit fucking fall on them from this fucking get-go. And that's like all you want to. That's the main draw of the series.
Yeah, the second season of the game is all about Clementine. You play as Clementine, and like I thought the game was going to be toned down. It's actually more fucked up than the first season.
Although if you want to talk about fucked up stuff, have you ever read? I think you may have told me about it. You ever heard of Crossed?
Oh man. I heard they were making a film adaptation of that, but like I don't see that happening.
Well, they didn't. What they did was they made an interactive comic book, I think.
Oh yeah.
If I recall, I need to look at the thing, but it got so much bigger than the last time I had read it. Because the last time I read it, there was like only 2 volumes, and now there's like a 30 comic internet epic of it, where people have been helping with it. Huh?
I need to get back into it because, like, I really like Cross. I mean, you know, Cross is definitely transgressive, but I really enjoyed it.
And it's sort of it's got that kind of same feeling as like have you seen The Crazies?
Yeah.
And also the second one, the remake.
Oh no, I actually only saw the remake, which I know it's kind of embarrassing. Normally that doesn't happen with me.
Well, but the remake is better than the original one in my opinion.
Okay.
And it goes off that sort of thing, like not only in The Crazies, but also in 28 Days Later and other movies. I think there was this one Greek film where they had the people just went crazy. Like it was kind of funny in the Greek film was because the disease or whatever that was making it happen to them was basically they could just touch the person and they instantly became crazy. And it was pretty hilarious to see like one guy go into a crowd and the entire crowd goes crazy and chases after the main character. But the whole thing behind that is what happens when a person has just lost it, like, but they're still alive. That's one of the main differences between things like Walking Dead and Dead Rising and stuff, and Crazies and Crossed, is what happens when those people that you gotta defeat are people who could probably come back.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I liked about Crossed compared to like The Walking Dead and such is that like Crossed is kind of like a halfway zone. You know, like there's still consciousness there, and to me that's a little bit more disturbing than just completely dead, because like part of me thinks that The Walking Dead is almost this notion of catharsis of just imagine you could go on a killing spree and there's no consequence because they're already dead.
Well, I don't think they want to go on a killing spree. They don't want to die. They don't try to go, like in Walking Dead, they don't try to go out and find zombies to murder. And in every other iteration of, dead people coming back to life, they depict those who do try to go out there and kill without discrimination because they can, since they have no consequence anymore, as the bad guys every single other time. Even in the original, not the original one, but in the remake of the original one by Tom Savini, they show the people who would like hurt and do bad stuff being like getting karma happen to them. So it's not about that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the original one with Tom Savini, the Dawn of the Dead is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the remake isn't bad, going off of like horror remakes, which to me is almost a taboo. That's it's still a decent film. Like
what's that one? The one that was made by the guys who made Saw, where they find the guy who had the collector.
I never saw it.
So they had made the original one, which was, they didn't make it, but there was the original movie called The Collector about this crazy dude who was like a weird murderer guy, and like he had like it was basically Jigsaw before Jigsaw, right?
Yeah.
And that was The Collector. And so then they made Saw, right? Because they were inspired by that movie, The Collector. And so they made Jigsaw, who was basically that guy, and they had the whole Saw franchise, right? And the Saw franchise ended. And I guess the guy who directed the original one had made enough money to actually buy the rights for The Collector, and he made a sequel called The Collection, which obviously was Saw with The Collector in it. And it was terrible. It was really bad. It was horrible. And they even show the guy's fucking face. The fucking guy who was the fucking original murderer, who they never show his face in the original movie. Oh, they figured it out in the new one, so they're fucking better. Like, that's what you mean, right? About how the fucking remakes can be fucking terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, on top of that, like, oftentimes, like, remakes, surprisingly, like, a movie will be made, like, 10, 15 years ago, or even longer, like in the 70s or something like that. And, like, the new versions are neutered versions. It's like, remember all the fucked up shit? I don't know, did you ever see the movie Last House on the Left?
Yes.
Did you ever see the remake?
No.
Okay, the remake took all the good parts out of it. And they also got rid of the moral ambiguity. Like, because in the original, they kill everybody, including the little boy, too.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, they kill the 2 guys and the chick, but they don't kill the little boy because, like, oh, you know, he's innocent or whatever. So it gets rid of that moral ambiguity. Plus, there's no dick biting off and all that kind of stuff, too.
Yeah, they kind of did the same thing a little bit in the Oldboy remake.
Oh, my God. You watched it?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, my God.
I saw it 3 times, actually.
Why did you watch it 3 times?
I told you, we don't get to choose what comes on the freaking channel, man.
Oh, what's the channel that you watch?
SciTube.
Okay.
On SciTube, well, we get to choose what to vote for, but the users choose, right? That's why I said it's sort of like working at a video store.
Yeah.
And but we gotta watch them all. Like we just gotta let it play. Since I'm in the chat room, I gotta moderate it, so I gotta watch all the movies that play. And I watched it one time to make sure that it was okay to be polled.
Yeah.
And then we watched it twice on the channel.
Oh man. Yeah, no.
It wasn't horrible, but it was pretty bad. It was. I mean, and I don't really try to call things bad because like a lot of people put a lot of effort into these things, but like it just. The decisions they made in the remake just didn't really make too much sense. I mean, I could see if they didn't want to do the same thing over again, but the way that they decided to do it was just not as good as like the decisions they made in the original one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I watched the movie and like probably the biggest thing that made me depressed about the movie was like I think Spike Lee's a good director.
Yeah.
And so I was really hopeful that they were at least going to make it, you know, a different movie, you know, to, like, go all the way with it. But, like, they were trying to meet it at, like, halfway.
Yeah.
Or more like a quarter of the way.
Not even.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, they took all the stuff that made Oldboy awesome and pretty much took it out of it. You know, there was... I remember noticing the squid and then them just like passing it by. You know, like he's at the restaurant, you see the squid in the background.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, you know, they're gonna redo it. It's probably gonna be CGI, but it will look good and stuff like that. They totally go past that. There's like a hint and a nod to the angel wings. You know, I mean, like, I would appreciate the nods if, like, the movie was better. Like, the movie ultimately, like, failed. Now, I did kind of like the ultimate conclusion of the movie, though.
And I thought, what's the guy, the actor who played him, Josh Brolin. I thought he did good. Like, you know, even though it wasn't a very good script to work with, I think that that's where the problem really lied. Because I think Spike Lee and was it Spike Lee?
Yeah, it was Spike Lee.
Yeah, Spike Lee and Josh Brolin, and they did. I think they did a good job with what they had. You know, because it wasn't like all terrible. You know, like it was pretty bad, but their parts weren't so horrid. It was more with the story and the decisions they had made to skirt around the original. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. But for me, it was just, it's like, I mean, it's like any other remake, you know. Usually something so dear to you gets, like, adapted and, you know, the final result makes you cry.
Did you really cry?
Almost. Yeah, I almost cried.
I wouldn't have even watched it that long if it wasn't gonna make me cry. I wouldn't have even watched it for that long.
Well, you already know that Oldboy's like one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know.
So I had to watch the remake, but I was prepared at least that
it was gonna be good. Yeah. I was prepared. Prepared for the horribleness. I know you didn't want to say you were like the guys from South Park. Huh?
Like what guys from South Park?
When they fucking saw the Indiana Jones fucking movie.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost like that. It was almost like watching Odaisu getting raped multiple times. Yeah. And that's how things went down. Thanks for listening.